What if I told you that a humble 1991 Liberty 5-cent coin, the Jefferson nickel you've been spending without a second thought for decades, could sometimes be worth far more than the mere 5 cents stamped on its face? What if I said that nestled among the millions of these nickels produced by the United States Mint are rare errors, mistakes, and mint variations that have captured the attention of collectors and in some instances brought astonishing sums of money at auction? That's the surprising reality of modern numismatics, that even everyday coins from recent decades like the 1991 Jefferson nickel can, under the right conditions, transform from pocket change into prized collector coins worth dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. In this extended history, we're going to explore not only the history of the 1991 Jefferson nickel, its production and circulation worth, but also what kinds of errors and anomalies make some of these pieces so valuable, and how collectors determine which coins have real rarity and value beyond face amount. The Liberty 5-cent coin, more commonly known as the Jefferson nickel, is an enduring piece of United States coinage. First introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and paid tribute to President Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. The design, created by Felix Schlag, features Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his stately home Monticello on the reverse. This design, with slight modifications over the years, has remained in continuous production ever since, making the Jefferson nickel one of the most familiar coins in American currency. By 1991, the nickel had been circulating for more than half a century, and its everyday presence in commerce, tucked inside wallets, jingling in cash registers, and collected in jars on kitchen counters, made it a mundane fixture of monetary life. Specifically, the 1991 Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint and bears the small d mint mark identifying that origin. In that year, the Denver facility produced approximately 436,496,678 nickels, a very large mintage that, under normal circumstances, means the coin is common and widely available to collectors and the general public alike. The metal composition of the coin is the standard 75% copper and 25% nickel that has been used on post-war Jefferson nickels since 1946, and it measures about 21.2 millimeters in diameter and weighs approximately 5 grams. In everyday circulation, this coin was used for 5-cent transactions across the United States and fulfilled its role as a small denomination coin of commerce. Typical value guides show that the 1991 nickel in circulated condition is generally worth about its face value of 5 cents, and even in better condition without any special features, it may only bring a few dollars in uncirculated grades if sold to a collector or at auction. One valuation reference notes that the 1991 nickel is worth roughly 36 cents at lower uncirculated grades and up to around $3 or so for the nicest standard examples without any rare attributes. Another pricing estimate suggests that in average circulated condition, these coins still trade for about 5 cents to a few cents above face, and that typical uncirculated examples might reach approximately $5 to $8 in the highest common grades. These baseline values underscore the reality that most 1991 nickels are common and not especially valuable in isolation. After all, when a mint produces hundreds of millions of any given coin, most of those coins will be plentiful in circulation and available to collectors without much demand pressure. Prices for such common coins in everyday condition remain close to face value because there is an ample supply for the demand that exists among collectors. Those values apply to most examples that have simply worn through circulation without any unusual features. These ordinary pieces are part of the fabric of American money and represent the vast majority of coins handed from one person to another over the years. But the world of coin collecting is built not just on commonplace examples but on rarity, variation, history, and human fascination with anomalies. When a coin produced in mass quantities exhibits unusual characteristics that stem from the minting process itself, such as misalignment, die defects, doubled impressions, or foreign materials interfering in the strike, it can prompt collectors to take notice. These unusual coins are known as error coins or varieties, and they are prized not for their face value but for how they tell a story about a moment of imperfection in the mint's production line. Within the 1991 Jefferson nickel series, including the Denver strike, a number of such mint errors and unusual issues have been documented, and some of these have sold for significantly more than face value when authenticated and graded by professional services. One of the most dramatic examples of how a 1991 nickel can carry extraordinary value involves a double denomination error, specifically, a 1991 nickel struck on a Lincoln penny planchet. This kind of mistake occurs when a blank intended for one denomination, in this case, a penny planchet, is inadvertently fed into a press set up for another denomination, resulting in a hybrid coin that features the nickel design on a penny metal blank, or the opposite effect depending on the specific error. These hybrid errors are very rare because the machinery for different denominations is typically kept segregated in quality control processes, but when they happen and survive inspection, they become the subject of intense collector interest. According to auction records, one such 1991 P nickel struck on a Lincoln penny planchet sold at a major auction for around $1,080, illustrating how a dramatic production error can transform an everyday coin into a collector treasure. Another similar error example realized around $432 at a prestigious sale, showing that even within the category of struck on wrong planchet coins there can be a wide range of realized values depending on condition and eye appeal. While those specific examples involve the Philadelphia Mint rather than the Denver Mint mark, they underscore that similar kinds of minting mistakes could potentially exist in 1991D examples as well, and that highly unusual, authenticated error coins draw significantly more interest and consequently higher market value than standard circulated coins. Other types of errors that collectors look for in the 1991 nickel series include off-center strikes, broad strike errors, clipped planchet errors, and strike-through errors. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not correctly aligned in the coining press at the moment of impact, which causes the design to be shifted off its normal center position. Depending on the degree of misalignment, off-center errors can range from minor to very dramatic, with more extreme examples showing large blank areas where the design is missing. Such coins attract attention because the error is visible without magnification and clearly shows a deviation from normal minting, and when the date and important details remain legible they can command premiums well above face value. A broad strike error occurs when the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward and producing a coin with a wider and flatter appearance, softer details, and often a distorted rim. Broad strikes are immediately noticeable when compared with normal coins and are collectible because they demonstrate a momentary malfunction in the minting collar system. Clipped planchet errors occur when the blank from which coins are made is punched incorrectly, resulting in a coin that is missing a curved section along its edge. These clipped planchets can vary in size and shape depending on how the metal strip was overlapped or misfed at the moment of blanking, and the more dramatic the clip the more visually striking and potentially valuable the error can be. Strike-through errors involve debris, grease, or other foreign material becoming trapped between the die and the planchet at striking, leading to incomplete or distorted design elements where the coin was struck through that obstacle. All of these kinds of errors provide direct evidence of something unusual occurring during the minting process, and collectors prize them for both their rarity and their story value. Even beyond these striking anomalies, Jefferson nickel collectors sometimes emphasize strike quality designations such as full steps, a term that refers to the 6 horizontal steps on Jefferson's Monticello home on the reverse. Full steps coins are those where these steps are fully struck and clearly separated, rather than weak or merged due to worn dies or lighter striking pressure. Full steps examples can fetch a premium compared with similar coins that do not display this strong detail because collectors consider them superior strike quality within the series. While such quality designations are not strictly errors in the same sense as misstrikes or planchet mistakes, they nonetheless represent a form of variety and quality differentiation that can affect a coin's market value. The difference between standard circulated value and error or high-grade collectible value can be dramatic. Most 1991D Jefferson nickels will be worth their face value of 5 cents in everyday circulation because they are abundant and easily obtainable. If such a coin is in excellent uncirculated condition but without any unusual features, its value to a collector might be in the low single-digit range, perhaps up to around $5 or $8 at most when professionally graded. But if the same coin exhibits a dramatic mint error, was struck in an extremely unusual way, or shows exceptional strike details and condition, its value can multiply many times over. Collector databases and auction records for Jefferson nickels from the same year show that some high-grade specimens with proper full steps designations or notable authenticated errors have sold for hundreds of dollars, and that in the realm of rare error coins the sky is almost the limit for value. It is critical to understand that not all unusual-looking features on a coin are authentic mint errors. Many coins in circulation accumulate scratches, dents, discoloration, or wear from pockets, bags, tills, and everyday handling. These post-mint marks and abrasions do not confer collectible value because they occurred after the coin left the mint and thus do not reflect anything intrinsic about the production process. An authentic mint error must be a feature that could only have arisen during the manufacturing process, such as a misstrike, off-center planchet position, collar failure, die chip, or foreign material interference at the moment of stamping. Professional grading services can help collectors distinguish true mint errors from post-mint damage, and they also assign a grade on a scale that communicates the coin's condition relative to others of its kind. Coins that combine authentic mint errors with high grades, for example, numbers above MS65 on the Sheldon scale, are usually those that bring the highest premiums because they are both rare and visually appealing. The collector community often encourages people to examine their own coins for unusual attributes because even a common date like 1991 can hide interesting anomalies. Whether someone is a seasoned numismatist or a casual coin roll hunter, checking a nickel's edges, center alignment, and both obverse and reverse design details can sometimes reveal features that merit further investigation. Tools such as magnifying glasses, digital microscopes, and comparison guides are often used to identify subtle errors like repunched mint marks, minor double dies, or planchet lamination errors, though it should be noted that not all repunched mint marks or slight variations are officially recognized varieties, and many have only limited collector interest unless they are dramatic or documented through established references. In general, the more eye-catching and verifiable a variation is, the greater interest it attracts from collectors and the stronger its potential market value. It's also valuable to consider that coin values evolve over time due to market dynamics, collector interest, rarity discoveries, and auction results. A coin that was once thought to be only worth face value can suddenly become desirable if a new error type is discovered, a known error example increases in auction value, or a collector community places greater emphasis on certain varieties. This fluid nature of numismatic value keeps the hobby exciting and unpredictable because even coins struck in seemingly ordinary years can, through rare mistakes or quality designations, achieve unexpected value. For the 1991 D. Jefferson nickel, therefore, the history of value is one of contrast. On one hand, the coin is extremely common, serving its purpose as a 5-cent piece with no remarkable attributes in most collections and remaining worth roughly its face value or modest premiums for uncirculated condition. On the other hand, hidden among that vast production are potential error coins and high-grade examples that illustrate how imperfection in production, rarity, and collector demand can elevate a simple 5-cent coin into an object of significant numismatic interest and monetary value. Whether through an exceptional off-center strike, a clipped planchet, a broad strike, a dramatic strike through error, or a beautiful full steps example in a high grade, these nickels remind us that even the most familiar coins, those we spend every day without a second thought, can sometimes hold surprises that delight collectors and quietly appreciate in value over time. So the next time you empty your pocket change and scoop up a handful of nickels, take just a moment to look closely at the details. Because among the ordinary and worn, there may just be a 1991 D. Jefferson nickel with an unusual history and a value that far exceeds its humble 5-cent face. Whether your coin turns out to be a common struck example or a rare mint error, what? If that everyday nickel, the one you barely notice when you spend it, could secretly be one of the rare modern American coins that collectors want and are willing to pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars for, all because of tiny mistakes, minting errors, or rare struck varieties that most people overlook. This is not speculation or legend, it is the fascinating truth about numismatics, the study and collection of coins, and how something as ordinary as a 1996 P. Jefferson nickel can sometimes become a highly valuable piece of history. Every year millions of coins are struck at the U.S. Mint, and among them are subtle anomalies, striking quirks, and rare conditions that make certain individual examples far more valuable than others. The story of the 1996 P. Jefferson nickel is a story not just of face value and circulation, but of mistakes, mint errors, collector pursuit, and how a small piece of metal can unexpectedly become treasured and prized. The Liberty 5-cent coin, commonly known as the Jefferson nickel, has been part of American coinage since 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin features a portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, on the obverse, and Jefferson's iconic Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. For decades this coin has circulated widely in everyday commerce, from cash registers to coin jars, and from pocket change to vending machines. By the time the year 1996 arrived, the Jefferson nickel was already an established staple of U.S. currency, familiar to shoppers and coin collectors alike. The specific 1996 P. Jefferson nickel was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and bears the small letter P to signify its place of origin on the obverse beneath Jefferson's portrait. In 1996 the Philadelphia facility produced approximately 829,332,000 of these nickels, a very large mintage that ensured these coins would be common in circulation and easily found in wallets across the country. These coins were struck on standard copper nickel-clad planchets composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a diameter of about 21.20 mm and a weight of roughly 5 grams, just like other post-war Jefferson nickels. In ordinary everyday use most of these coins have a face value of 5 cents and are worth exactly that 5 cents when used for making change or paying for small purchases. In typical circulated condition, a 1996 P nickel is worth around 5 cents to a few cents above face value because of its massive production and wide distribution. This baseline valuation holds true because the coin is abundant and remains plentiful in circulation, and most collectors who want one will have no trouble finding it. According to current coin valuation guides, a standard 1996 P Jefferson nickel in average circulated condition is still worth about 5 cents, and even in better condition without any special attributes it might only be worth a modest amount, perhaps around 30 cents to $1.24 or so in uncirculated mint state condition. These typical values make sense when one considers the supply and demand dynamics of coin collecting. With hundreds of millions of coins produced, and with a design that has no intrinsic precious metal content, most 1996 P nickels remain common and affordable. Some resources list uncirculated 1996 P nickels as being worth as little as a few cents to a couple of dollars in higher uncirculated grades, illustrating that their value is modest unless they have something special. Nonetheless, the world of coin collecting goes far beyond just face value and common uncirculated pieces. Serious collectors and hobbyists pay close attention to anomalies in minting, rare-struck varieties, condition grades, and design details that can elevate a coin from everyday pocket change to a prized collectible that sells at auction for far more than its nominal value. To understand why some 1996 P nickels can be worth significantly more than 5 cents, it helps to look at how coins are made and how mistakes happen in that process. The United States Mint produces coins by feeding planchets blank metal discs into high-pressure presses that strike the obverse and reverse dies simultaneously, imprinting the design onto both sides of the coin. This process is carefully engineered for speed and consistency, but it is also subject to mechanical imperfections, human intervention, and variations in material handling. With millions of coins struck in a year, it is perhaps inevitable that some individual planchets will be misfed, dies will be misaligned, foreign material will interfere, or steps in the production process will malfunction in subtle ways. When these anomalies occur and the resulting coins are not pulled from production and destroyed, they enter circulation as error coins, coins with features that differ from the intended perfect strike. These error coins can range from obvious dramatic anomalies to subtle but collectible variations, and their values are often determined by their rarity, visual appeal, and how striking the error appears relative to normal specimens. One of the most obvious error types that can occur with Jefferson nickels, including the 1996 P issue, is the clipped planchet error. This type of error happens when the blank that was meant to be cut from the metal strip does not separate properly, resulting in a coin that is missing a portion of its edge before it is even struck. The missing metal on the edge gives the coin a distinctive look, and collectors often distinguish different clipped planchet shapes such as straight edge clips, curved clips, and irregular clips. While many clipped planchet errors are only modestly valuable, because they are relatively easy to find and not extremely rare, some examples, especially those with larger clips and clear diagnostic features like the Blakesley effect on the opposite side, can fetch premiums compared with normal circulated coins. Another fascinating category of error is the off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet is not properly aligned between the dies at the moment of striking, causing the design to appear shifted toward one side of the coin. In dramatic cases, a significant portion of the design can be missing from one side, leaving a crescent-shaped area of unstruck metal. The value of an off-center error coin depends in part on how far off-center the strike was and whether the date and mint mark remain visible. Coins struck 10% to 50% off-center with a fully visible date might be collectible and command prices that are notably above face value, while coins struck extremely off-center with missing date digits can be especially valuable because of their rarity and visual uniqueness. A third error type that collectors watch for is the broad strike error. Normal coinage is struck within a metal collar that restrains the planchet's diameter and ensures a standard thickness. When a planchet is struck outside the collar due to a malfunction or misfeed, the metal flows outward more than usual under the force of the dies, producing a broader and thinner coin with flatter design elements and an irregular or incomplete rim. Broad strike errors are dramatic and distinctive, and examples that are well struck and visually interesting are often sought after by collectors. Beyond these major categories, there are also a host of other potential error and variety types that can occur in modern coinage. Die cracks and die clashing happen when the dies themselves begin to wear or are struck against each other without a planchet in place, leaving raised lines or ghost images on the struck coins. Strike-through errors occur when foreign material such as grease or debris temporarily lodges between the die and the planchet at the moment of striking, causing part of the design to be obscured or distorted. Some of these error features can appear subtle, requiring magnification or careful comparison to standard coins, while others are dramatic enough to be immediately visible to the naked eye. Collectors often seek out both major and minor error types because they represent physical evidence of the minting process and add a story and human dimension to otherwise routine pieces of money. It is also worth noting that the full steps FS designation is highly relevant to the value of 1996 P. Jefferson nickels, even though it is not technically an error. This designation refers to the clarity and separation of the horizontal steps on the Monticello building depicted on the reverse of the coin. Many 1996 nickels, like other post-1965 nickels, suffer from weak striking across these steps because the metal composition is relatively hard and dies sometimes lose definition quickly. A coin that exhibits fully separated, well-defined steps is considered to have superior strike quality, and collectors often seek such coins for their collections. Certain high-grade 1996 P nickels with the full steps designation have fetched significantly higher prices at auction than typical circulation strikes because they represent the best struck examples of that year. For instance, a 1996 P Jefferson nickel graded MS67 FS by a reputable grading service sold for around $690 at a major auction, illustrating how condition and strike quality can drive value even when the coin is common in circulation. Many of the valuation guides and auction records for the 1996 Jefferson nickel, including the Philadelphia strike, show that typical coins remain plentiful and inexpensive in average circulated condition, yet rare high-grade coins or examples with the full steps designation can command surprison. To understand how and why a coin worth 5 cents in everyday use can be worth far more to collectors, it helps to look at how coins are made and how errors occur. Every coin struck at the U.S. Mint begins as a flat metal blank called a planchet, which is fed between two hardened steel dies engraved with the obverse and reverse designs. When the press strikes with enormous pressure, the dies imprint the design onto both sides of the planchet simultaneously. This process is highly automated and quality controlled, yet with the enormous volume of coins produced it is not perfect. On rare occasions, mechanical misfeeds, die defects, foreign material contamination, and planchet preparation anomalies can result in coins that are misshapen, misaligned, weakly struck, or struck on the wrong metal blank entirely. When such coins escape the quality checks at the mint and enter circulation or cultivation by collectors, they become what numismatists call error coins, coins that carry evidence of how the minting process went wrong at the moment of striking rather than how the coin wore through use after leaving the mint. One of the more visually dramatic error types known in the 1994 Jefferson nickel series is the off-center strike error. When the planchet is not properly centered in the coining press, the strike lands off the intended axis and the design is shifted toward one side of the coin. Depending on how far off-center the strike was, a large portion of the design might be missing entirely from one side, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area along the edge. These off-center nickels are much rarer than ordinary coins because quality control at the mint is designed to catch them before they are distributed. When authentic off-center coins are certified and graded by a reputable third-party grading service, they often command significant premiums over face. A 1994 P. Jefferson nickel struck about 60% off-center that has been authenticated and graded MS-64 by Anax, for example, is currently offered in the collector market at prices far above face because it is a true major mint error with visible deviation from the normal design. Another error type that can affect 1994 P nickels is the clipped planchet error. This happens when the blank from which the coin is made is punched irregularly from the metal strip, leaving a portion of the coin's edge missing even before it is struck. This results in a coin that is incomplete along the edge, sometimes with a fairly smooth curve where metal was absent when the design was applied. Clipped planchets occur because the blanks did not fully separate from the metal strip in the blanking press, and they are one of the classic error varieties that collectors actively seek out because they are visually distinct from ordinary coins. While clipped planchet errors on typical 1994 P nickels might not always command very high prices, many are listed by sellers for modest collectible premiums. They nonetheless push the coin's value above mere face in the right condition because they are unmistakably different from standard circulation strikes. Beyond off-center strikes and clipped planchets, the 1994 P Jefferson nickel series also exhibits more complex and rarer error varieties. One category involves multiple strike errors. Sometimes a planchet can remain in the press chamber and be struck more than once in different positions, especially if it is not ejected properly after the first strike. A particularly unusual example documented from the 1994 series involved a flip-over quadruple strike where the planchet was struck 4 times at various orientations, creating overlapping impressions of the design from both sides. These kinds of striking anomalies are dramatic to look at and highly prized by collectors because they are extreme deviations from normal production. Values for such error coins vary widely depending on striking visibility, eye appeal, and grade, but documented examples from the 1994 series have sold for several $100s at auction because of their visual impact and rarity. Another type of error or variation collectors watch for is strike-through errors. This occurs when foreign material, such as grease, cloth fibers, or tiny debris. In addition to true mint errors, there are special strike varieties from 1994 that can elevate a coin's value above typical circulation strikes even without dramatic minting mistakes. In particular, the U.S. Mint released a relatively small number of special, matte, or special strike 1994 P nickels as part of the Thomas Jefferson coinage and currency set in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of Jefferson's birth. These coins were intentionally finished with a matte surface rather than the usual business strike and were limited in number, with around 167,703 produced. While most of these special strike nickels did not enter everyday circulation, they eventually found their way into collections, and certi. My dears history lovers, imagine casually sifting through a handful of nickels and discovering that one of them was struck in such an unusual way that collectors around the world would pay hundreds or even more than $1,000 for it. That's the hidden world of coin collecting, where ordinary coins from everyday commerce can sometimes reveal dramatic errors, rare variations, and minting mistakes that make them highly valuable to enthusiasts. And few coins illustrate this dynamic better than the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin that most people used unthinkingly for small purchases, yet in certain forms has become a subject of intense interest in the numismatic community. The Liberty 5-cent coin most people know as the Jefferson nickel has been in continuous production in the United States since 1938, honoring Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence. The coin was designed by Felix Schlag, and its iconic imagery, Jefferson's portrait on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse, has become one of the most familiar motifs in modern American coinage. By 1994 the nickel had been a fixture of everyday currency for more than half a century, circulating in all parts of the country and passing through countless hands as Americans used it to make small transactions every day. The specific coin at the center of this story, the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the small P mint mark located just under Jefferson's portrait on the obverse. In 1994 the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 722,160,000 of these nickels, making it a very common issue in coinage of that year. These coins were struck on the standard 5-gram copper nickel-clad planchets that had become typical for post-war nickels, and they were intended for routine circulation. Because of that large mintage and the commonplace nature of the design, the overwhelming majority of 1994p nickels that people encounter, whether tucked in jars of loose change or passed at a cash register, are worth about their original face value of 5 cents if they are worn and ordinary. In average circulated condition, these coins are typically still worth around 5 cents to 10 cents because most collectors and dealers price them at or just slightly above face due to abundant supply. In uncirculated condition without any special attributes, these coins may be worth a few dollars, often in a mint state around $5 to $20 or so depending on exact grade, but they do not normally command high premiums merely for being well preserved. One coin value reference lists standard 1994p Jefferson nickels in uncirculated mint state condition at prices around $5 to $18 or a bit more, illustrating that basic condition alone does not dramatically elevate value before errors or special features are considered. To understand how and why a coin worth 5 cents in everyday use can be worth far more to collectors, it helps to look at how coins are made and how errors occur. Every coin struck at the U.S. Mint begins as a flat metal blank called a planchet, which is fed between two hardened steel dies engraved with the obverse and reverse designs. When the press strikes with enormous pressure, the dies imprint the design onto both sides of the planchet simultaneously. This process is highly automated and quality controlled, yet with the enormous volume of coins produced it is not perfect. On rare occasions, mechanical misfeeds, die defects, foreign material contamination, and planchet preparation anomalies can result in coins that are misshapen, misaligned, weakly struck, or struck on the wrong metal blank entirely. When such coins escape the quality checks at the mint and enter circulation or cultivation by collectors, they become what numismatists call error coins, coins that carry evidence of how the minting process went wrong at the moment of striking rather than how the coin wore through use after leaving the mint. One of the more visually dramatic error types known in the 1994 Jefferson nickel series is the off-center strike error. When the planchet is not properly centered in the coining press, the strike lands off the intended axis and the design is shifted toward one side of the coin. Depending on how far off-center the strike was, a large portion of the design might be missing entirely from one side, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area along the edge. These off-center nickels are much rarer than ordinary coins because quality control at the mint is designed to catch them before they are distributed. When authentic off-center coins are certified and graded by a reputable third-party grading service, they often command significant premiums over face.